you know, I came up with that idea kind of separately. I well, there's a long history in the South of people serving in the military, and obviously a lot of my family had served in the military. And when I went through law school, I realized that I worked actually for a year in a major law firm in San Francisco as a secretary. And I realized two things. One, I didn't want to be a secretary. And two, I didn't really want to work in one of those law firms where you're doing like just billable hours and trying to generate income and, you know, and get to the top of the corporate ladder. It just didn't appeal to me. And so it was actually here in Sonoma County, I was working for the court, and one of the other attorneys there said, oh, you should go and be a JAG. You should be, my brother's a Navy JAG, he loves it, it's the best thing ever. And I said, well, if it's so great, how come you're not doing it? And her eyesight wasn't good enough. And so I said, okay, so I looked into it. I actually went to the Navy recruiter in Oakland, and they didn't know what to do with me. I'm a female, I want to be active duty, and I'm a lawyer, and you're already a lawyer. We're going to have to call somebody, ma'am. We're going to have to call the Pentagon. We don't know what to do with you. So anyways, they eventually figured out that believe it or not, all branches of the military do have active duty lawyers. The Marines, you have to be a Marine for 6 months, and then they'll let you look at filing some paperwork. And then the Army, you're pretty much a regular officer and also an attorney. But in the Air Force, at the time, I'm sure this may have changed, we went to a 2-week basic training course with the chaplains, and it was near a golf course. So, yeah, to the extent you see me running around being G.I. Jane, that's not what happened. But so I really just wanted to go and serve my country and do something other than chase the almighty buck. And I just thought it was a good way to serve. They didn't pay my loans, they didn't pay for my school. I was already admitted and passed the bar when I went in. And it was great. It was really, really a great choice. I got some unique experiences that I never would have had otherwise. Well, that's a really, really good question, because I'm not perfect, and to the extent I become aware that I've made a really bad decision, one of my favorite sayings I actually got, I think it was 2008, I went to Egypt, and it was before the Arab Spring. And the guide that was there that I met, her husband was a judge in Egypt. And so, and I learned a little bit of Arabic, and he had learned a little bit of English. And so we actually wound up going to their home, and he and I talked about how he does his work. And it's basically very similar to how I do my work, but of course they don't have the jury system, which is so important. And it was really interesting because he was very interested in trying to get separate rights for the judicial branch, because in Egypt nobody could sue the government. And even if you could, any judge who awarded money against the government would not be around for very long as a judge or perhaps otherwise. And so he was, you know, we really can't have justice until we have a separate independent judiciary. And I really worry about him and his family, since then they had a 5-year-old child too. But anyways, his friends found out about me, and then they met with me, and they sent me this letter, and it was a letter from the first caliph after the Prophet Muhammad to the first judge in Egypt about how to be a judge. And then I met this very nice man in the airport in Cairo who helped me translate it into English. And it's almost identical to the California judicial canons of ethics. So this ancient letter about how to be a judge is pretty much the same thing that we're told today about how to be a judge. And one of them is that it's better to reverse yourself than to persist in error. And I really have lived by that. If I become aware I've made a mistake, I need to acknowledge it and do something about it, as opposed to trying to worry about how I look. Very early on in my career, I realized I could either look smooth or do it correctly, but I couldn't do both. And so I gave up on looking smooth, and now I just try and do it correctly. But of course I'm human, and I can guarantee you there are some decisions I've made that probably objectively were wrong. But again, you do your best, and you try and follow the rules and be honest in your decision making. I also try and be transparent. Why am I doing something? I try and tell people that. What do I think the law is? I try and tell them that, so that if I'm wrong or I haven't thought of something, they can tell me. Well, did you think about this? Or, well, there's this other law over here, and then I can correct myself. Some of the toughest decisions I ever had were in family law about custody and visitation. Those are the ones that kept me up the longest, and there are some of those cases that I'll remember forever. One case in particular, where the woman, the mother of the child, was actually a victim of domestic violence, and it culminated with her boyfriend, who was not the father of the child, being shot by the police during a standoff after he almost beat her to death. She escaped. And then I had to decide where that child, the baby, was going to stay, with her or with the biological father, and how they were going to share custody. And that's just tough facts. And I don't have special powers. You know, I can't just wave a wand and make it all better. So those are the cases that are the toughest, and you make a judgment call, which is what you're paid for. Well, you know, constantly you're always measuring yourself, and you're always worried about, for me, I was always worried about being perfect and being afraid that I would fail and being afraid to try stuff because I wasn't going to be able to do it perfectly, which, you know, as you get older, you realize is kind of ridiculous, because you're never going to do anything perfectly, and if you wait to be ready, you'll never do anything. And I would say that the thing that helped me get past a lot of that was just trying things. Even if they were, you know, silly things like entering competition chicken showing in the fair, or breeding Rex rabbits, which I had red Rex rabbits and I had bantam blackcomb chickens, and I would show them, and my mom would actually put the rabbits in the trunk of the car and drive me around Northern California to show these bunny rabbits at various competitions. But, you know, at 10, 11, and 12, that was really helpful for me to feel like, you know, I'd get a ribbon, and I did okay. And so then the next time it was easier to try. But, you know, I still feel like when I got the job that I have now, which is a great job, and I love the job, but there are still days when I walk out there and I think, who put me in charge? And people are really going to do what I say? I mean, that's great, and it's terrifying all at the same time. And so there's that motto, fake it till you make it. Just keep trying, just keep working. And so there's kind of the constant fear of rejection, failure, not being perfect, being disapproved of, and I just have to ignore it and push forward. I don't know that that's really a concrete example, but for me, that's really been the biggest challenge.
My name is Laura and I'm a sophomore.
My name is Sergio Ochoa and I'm a sophomore.
My name is Adrian Masurka and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Roberta Olivares and I'm a sophomore.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Martinez and I'm a sophomore.
Hi, my name is Ryan Nader and I'm a sophomore.